Chapter 15. The Pumpkin Pie. That which is not natural is not perfect. It was not really until autumn, a full year after I was taken ill, that I had final and convincing evidences of my recovery. To a man accustomed all his life to robust health, the health that glows with outdoor life, the loss of appetite which accompanies a long illness, though the doctors may consider it of minor importance, is nevertheless one of the major woes. For it is a fact that two of the senses which give us the most powerful grasp upon the good, homely realities of life, I mean the sense of smell and the sense of taste, lose their delight when one cannot enjoy his daily food. They told me I was convalescent long before I believed what they said. I did not go to dinner like an army with banners. When the leaves began to turn and the apples were ripe and there was a frosty zest in the morning air, I began, after a long forenoon in the garden or orchard, or tramping in country roads, to be conscious that there was something in life quite worth living for. By 12 o'clock, I was listening eagerly for a call from the house. And finally, one day, really for the first time, I knew I had come fully alive. At dinner on that unforgettable occasion, there appeared in all its glory the most perfect pumpkin pie that ever I saw in my life. It was like a full moon, crimped about with little flaky clouds of pie crust, and, being just from the oven, I hate clammy pies, it gave off the ambrosia of the gods. Nowhere else on earth, save in New England, has pumpkin pie reached the final stage of perfection. For in New England, by one of those daring incongruities or disharmonies that mark the highest art, it is often not made of pumpkin at all, but of squash. There it was, then, reposing in all its refulgence of golden glory upon our largest dinner plate. Little brown and yellow bubbles had worked upon its surface a kind of autumnal pattern, and the crinkled rim of crust about it was exactly of the right colour to tempt the eye, for it promised to melt in the mouth. "A wonderful pie," said I to Harriet. "Wait until you taste it," said she. So she drew the knife across it and cut out and lifted a generous slice. I give my word it was all of 2 inches thick, and, having placed it carefully upon a little plate, passed it along to me. There it was, a deep, luscious yellow, shading to orange, all warm and moist and rich and full of ravishing odours. "This, surely," said I, "is one of the great moments of life." "Ridiculous," said Harriet. "Eat it, eat it." "Slowly, slowly," said I, "one thing at a time. This is no occasion for usurpation by any one of the senses. This is not merely for tasting, but for smelling and seeing, and, I think, for touching also. Don't touch it, eat it." "I expect also," said I, "if one's hearing were sufficiently acute, say as good as a honeybee's, he could also find keen enjoyment in listening to what is going on inside of this delectable pie." "I never saw your like," interrupted Harriet. All the faint little bubblings and boilings and dissolvings and settlings left over from the oven. He could see, too, if his eyes were perfect, the delicate aroma, the veritable spirit, one might call it the animate mist, rising from this pie. "Stop, stop!" As I said, the animate mist of the pie, charged with the spices of Arabia, rising out of its delicious hidden recesses. "When are you going to eat that pie?" "When I have enjoyed it sufficiently beforehand," said I to Harriet. "When I have reached the appropriate place in the ritual. Let me ask you this. Is there any point in taking less enjoyment out of nature than one is capable of doing? Why walk on one leg when you have 2? Or use one sense when you have 5? In this degenerate and greedy age, are we grown to be savages, willing to bolt our beauty? And," interposed Harriet with spirit. "Philosophize until our pie is cold." "And," continued I, "merely eat our pie?" I found myself waving my fork in the air. The last remark of Harriet much impressed me. It was extremely sensible. So I fell to, as the unctuous old writers used to say, and without further excursions into philosophy or poetry, ate every crumb of my triangle of pie. I have thought since how I could express the sensations of that blissful moment, and have decided that language is a beggarly medium, wholly incapable, whether with adjectives, verbs, or nouns, of giving even a hazy conception of what I was experiencing. My only recourse is to ask any possible reader of these lines to think back carefully along the whole course of his life and recall the moment of his greatest gustatory adventure, the most poignant thrill that the art of cookery ever gave him, and let me assure him that my experience at dinner with that perfect pumpkin pie was equal to, or possibly greater than, his noblest moment. "Well," said I, lifting at length my napkin, "this has been one of the notable incidents of my career." "Ridiculous," commented Harriet. "I shall never forget it," said I. "Heaven has no greater bliss for the souls of the saved." With such evidences as these, how can I doubt the completeness of my recovery? The end.